Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Hello and welcome to DevOps Accent, a podcast by MKDev. At MKDev, we provide consulting services and engineering services for your cloud infrastructure, DevOps teams, and data departments, your AI adventures during this exciting time. Give us a call to talk about it. And here on the podcast, we talk about all things around cloud-native technologies, industry's news, AI, and everything that get into our attention and that we are interested to talk about, together with co-host and MKDev co-founders and great industry experts, Pablo and Kirill. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Leo.
Hi, Kirill.
Hi, Leo. Once again, hi.
And with us today, a new guest and dear friend of ours, Johannes Koch, who we are happy to welcome to our podcast. Hi, Johannes.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Thanks for coming. So, Johannes is a senior engineer at FICO. Johannes is an AWS DevTools hero with extensive experience and infrastructure architecture and advanced analytics platforms with deep experience in cloud technologies and community involvement, which we are going to discuss today. But before we go any deeper or any further, I encourage everyone who listens us and who watches us on YouTube to give us likes and make sure you are subscribed to our channel, especially if this is not the first time you are listening to our podcast or watching our videos. This will help us a lot. And getting back to DevOps Accents, Johannes, what is your accent?
What is my DevOps accent? Interesting. I would say I'm more the person that thinks of DevOps being a mindset. And with that, for me, it's really important that it's a collaboration and a team's effort to be successful in DevOps. And that's what I would see as my own DevOps accent. So less the technical aspects of collaboration, but more the collaboration aspect of it.
And speaking of your language accents, where you came from?
Well, which language that's an interesting question. So originally I started the traditional DevOps way with running PHP scripts and copy pasting them on my own. And I was the one and only engineer on that services or on that software packages that I did like 20 years ago. Then I kind of moved towards the Java ecosystem. But these days I'm trying to not do much Java anymore. I'm more the TypeScript side of things. If that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like for those who don't know a lot about you, can you give us an overview of your career, how you get to where you currently are, because your experience is extensive, and even a simple glance at your profile on LinkedIn or your website is enough to realize that you are no ordinary engineer. Right?
Yeah, thanks for those kudos, Leo. I think, how did I start, right? I started like about 20 years ago, I think, with writing my own websites and also selling that as services. And then in the time of my studies, I already started to work in a small, mid-sized company in Germany, where I started in the QA team doing QA automation, which then brought me at the end to become a Java software engineer. And from there, I quickly discovered that just being an engineer is sometimes a little bit boring. So I moved over to be leading the support team and the operations team. We didn't have any cloud at that time. That was roughly 2012, maybe 13, something like that. And in 2015, we started our journey towards the cloud, where we took our services that we had, our applications, and moved them to the cloud, which was pretty intense. But at that time, I kind of experienced what DevOps really means for me, right? Because it means collaborating, getting people together, getting people to talk to each other. And I also found out what boundaries mean because there was, we had the responsibility to take things and make them production grade ready, but we didn't really have a chance to influence parts of the core business of the application, which was a problem because that doesn't work if you really want to move something to a cloud native world. And at that time I was leading support and the DevOps operations team, whatever. I was also leading the cloud team, and that brought me into AWS. And since 2015, my career on the AWS side has been developing. I've been attending more than one reInvent and other conferences that brought me a lot of learnings. I'm an active listener to podcasts like the MK Dev One and others that bring me a lot of insights also into what the industry is doing. I can talk about more details, Leo. I don't know how much details do you want?
Like the main details, what we are interested in, and most of our listeners in, is how your career transitions happened. What made you to transition from one part to another, and now to and eventually switching to your community involvement.
Okay, let me try to add some thoughts around that. Right, so as I said, we kicked off that small little team within our organization to do our journey to the cloud with our applications and convert the business to a software as a service business. And at that time, I was the team lead, but being a team lead in a small team means that you'll need to do all things. So I was doing CloudFormation code. I was writing Java code if required for Lambda functions. And with that, I had a very broad responsibility and a lot of things I needed to know in details, but I also needed to keep the overview. And I think this is what then brought me into thinking about what DevOps actually means for me, right? Which is having the full control about what you're delivering and having the full possibility to influence what you're building and what you're delivering in an automated fashion, right? Because everything that you need to do needs to be reproducible in today's modern cloud development world, at least from my perspective. Let's say the business grew, and there was a situation when the very junior team, which had has a lot of great team members, was let's say not able to scale with the load. This brought us into a situation where, let's say, it got challenging for the team, then there were some more resources added, which is where then I also met Pablo and Kirill at that time frame, right, where we worked together in the project itself. Pablo and Kirill know more about the challenges that we had in the project than we want to talk about today. But at the end, I would say this is how I then transitioned to be within the same organization that I'm with right now. I transitioned over to become the lead CI/CD expert because I saw a lot of potential for the bigger organization, which FICO is, to transform the CI/CD capabilities that we do in the organization, which kind of is part of the DevOps movement as well, having a full true CI/CD pipeline. And that brought me then to be part of a global team in the organization, which then at the end led me to get to be the infrastructure architect for FICO's data analytics and decisioning platform that we are building. And that's kind of from a professional career where I moved into. Now to touch on the community side of the world, I think for me it started kind of with AWS summits and reInvents, where I kind of got into the AWS ecosystem. I applied to be a community builder, which is a program that is open for everyone to apply. So it's an AWS community builders program where you get together experts that have been working with AWS and want to encourage content sharing and knowledge sharing around that. I joined that program in 2022, which at that stage, and I don't know, Pablo, if you remember, but at that stage, I still had, I was in that global team doing DevOps movement within my organization. And let's say I wasn't that happy at work. So the Community Builders program was a chance for me to do something technically that made me happy and made me interested, and that took my curiosity to learn new things, to get to know new people, and to talk to them. And that's how I just naturally, right, started to share content on my blog. I started to discuss a lot with other AWS community builders. I started some pet projects, those that you never finish, but you still have a lot of fun with, and you learn a lot about, right? And that naturally brought me into then at the end creating a user group in my local hometown for AWS, and working more with the German community as a whole. And I think in 2022, I was also for the first time part of the organizer team of the AWS Community Day in Germany. And that's kind of where I think now this is where the two personas Johannes started to live, right? The one that does the corporate work, which is the one that is important because it earns your money, but also the one that does the community work that gives back to the community with knowledge sharing, with bringing people together, with making connections, with doing introductions, but also with speaking about good and bad things that AWS as a whole is doing. And I think I'd like to stop there and see, Leo, where you want to go, because I can talk for hours.
That's the most fascinating part, when you have something interesting, and I see you are very interested in it, and I want to help you to expand on this. Could you share with us what the most interesting part in being AWS DevTools hero? Do you have some requirements for you to to fit into this role?
Let's take a step back. I think what we need to talk what is important is that community is what makes this thing grow, and working together in collaboration. And this can be in 100 different kind of formats. It can be by creating content. It can be by giving feedback. It can be by running user groups, by organizing community days, or by just talking to people and bringing them together, right? Or by mentoring others and making them grow their own career. For me, so for the AWS Heroes program, which is an invite-only program, you cannot apply for it, and essentially no one tells you why you are now part of the program. You get an information somewhere asking you, hey, do you want to join the Heroes program? This is what comes with it. And you don't get to know why you're part of that, right? So let's say I'm very lucky and I'm honored that I'm part of the program, but I can't say that it is because I'm a cute person, or it is because I like to talk a lot. I don't know, right? But I think what unites a lot of the heroes that I personally work with is the interest to help the community, to grow the community, and to make others also grow in their own career, which can be through knowledge sharing, or, as I said, through mentoring. And I think the heroes that I work with closely, they also unite that they don't want to get a benefit out of it. So it's not like I want to get a like or a mention because I share content. It's more that I really want to help people. And that's what I do on my YouTube channel at the end as well. I get people together that share their knowledge with me and with the audience, and not for me to get 500 million visitors, right? But more to make sure that the small Kirill, the small Pablo that is interested in a specific topic gets a session that he can or she can listen to, right? And get something out of it, which will save you maybe potentially 2 hours of work because someone has made that same mistake already. And that's, I think, what unites a lot of the heroes that share their content, share their experiences, and make sure that others don't do the same mistakes that they have been doing.
Despite what Johannes just said about likes, we all know how YouTube works. So everybody go to his YouTube channel, subscribe, give likes, make sure.
I think more important than likes, for me at least, is give feedback. So if there's something that you don't like, right, and something that you would like to change, then it means more to creators to tell them this is what you should do better than not giving any feedback. Because I don't know how you do that in your YouTube, but I hardly get feedback on, Johannes, you need to change this, or Johannes, I didn't like this, or maybe I would like to see this or that content, right? So start your community engagement with talking to the creators and giving feedback, because that's how these persons, and this includes Pablo, Kirill, Leo, and everyone else doing content, how they can tailor the content to be more useful for you, right? And that's more important than subscribe or liking, from my perspective at least.
Yeah, you mentioned that now we have two Johanneses. One is engineer that works on a corporate side. The other one is a community guy. But do you think which one involves another the most? Like, are your community talks, community engagements involved on how you structure your job on the main career, or like otherwise?
Good question. Yeah. So I would say there was a time when these two personalities existed beside each other, and they were not talking to each other at all. So this means in the community work, I was doing stuff that I was not doing at work because of certain reasons. I was strictly dividing that. In the past few months, since I changed my role in the organization, I can see more and more benefit coming from the community Johannes to the corporate Johannes, because I can see that stuff that I learned through my community work is helping me in my day job. Stuff that connections or network that I created through the community work is helping me for my day job as well, because I have experts to ask questions to, because I'm learning new things in my new role. So at the moment, I would say the organization Johannes benefits more from the community work than the community Johannes benefits from the organization work. And that might change again, right? Who knows?
But Johannes, how important is, for the people in mind, that a guy who is starting, how important is for these guys to be part of the community? Because, the community is something that is there for many, many years, but these days you can see that it's something super huge, and not everyone is in the community, and, but what is the difference between if you are or you are not?
What is the difference? That's an interesting question. I can tell you what the difference for me is. And there is a lot of things that make the community important for me, but it varies from person to person on what it helps you or what it brings for you, right? I think so. For me, the AWS community as a whole means whenever I go on a travel somewhere, I look if there is an AWS user group, and if there is one, I look if there is a user group leader that I can ask questions. My latest trip with the family, I went somewhere, right? And I didn't know much about the country where I went. I reached out to the local user group leader, the local community leader, and asked him a few stupid questions. And he gave me great answers, right? Next time I'm going to visit you on your little island, Pablo, I'm also going to see if I can see that user group that you have locally. So it means for me having people that I kind of can trust with globally, and people that I can also ask with any kind of questions. And this is more than just technical from my perspective. Things like, and I have this beautiful stickers, which you only get if you participate in the pre-invent hike 2022, and I have the one from 2023. That's an initiative I created, which means before the biggest conference in the AWS conference in the world, on the Sunday, we get together and we go out for hiking, right? Which is really just having friends globally that you can interact with and that you can talk with, that give you a sense of belonging somehow. At least that's what it means to me.
The closest example that reminiscence to why those communities are important, I think like a scientific community, when scientists get together to discuss some problems, you can imagine a scientist working in isolation, but without communicating with other scientists, and he hardly will make any major discoveries. Whilst if he joins the community and talk to them and share their thoughts and opinions, he can do much more.
And I think that also what community can mean multiple things, right? If you start in getting into the community, it can be just reading, reposting, or commenting on blog posts or on activities on social. We don't need to be doing much more. You could also just participate in open source projects by creating stories or issues there, right? Not even actively contributing, but that also creates a sense of belonging to that part of the community that you're getting involved with, right? Not everyone is as vocal as I am, so you don't need to be a speaker. You don't need to be a content creator to be part of the community. You can also just have one-on-one conversations, right? What can it help you? That is, for me, very simple. I build out in my head, and I have some notes about who is an expert on which topics. AWS has over 250 services. You cannot be an expert in all services, but you get to know through the community people that are experts in certain topics, and those are the ones that you can then ask if you have something that you're really struggling with, like a Lambda function always starting and doing something wrong. I would know. I'm going to ask this person. If it's in Python, I might be going to Ran. If it's in TypeScript, I might be going to Pubudu or whoever, right? But I have in my head specialists and experts for different topics that I can reach out to. And I think that's what the community can also bring you, access to experts that know specific topics very well because they have worked with them. And that's how I use the community as well, Pablo, if that makes sense.
I think for juniors, community is especially important. I'm just thinking about when I was starting out with backend development with Ruby, how big of an influence Google groups of Ruby developers back in Russia was like helping me a lot, because even if I don't participate actively, just reading through all the posts, you kind of get an idea of what kind of jobs exist, what kind of issues people have that you won't normally get from just, reading documentation. So it's a great chance to basically navigate yourself in this new professional space and potentially also get the first jobs there. Because in many cases, like, you're part of a community and then one guy says like, oh, we need a junior developer for this project, or we need a new DevOps guy for another project. Then it's a perfect entry. And I think it's important because I feel like after, like, once you're senior enough, it's easy to lose an interest in community, because if you like, I already know everything, I can get all the information from blog posts, official announcements. I don't really need to participate in community. So it's super important that people like you, Johannes, in general, like more senior people, participate in community, even though professionally maybe there is less benefits than for juniors. But you need to keep in mind that this community is crucial for building also the new generation of engineers.
Yeah, that is true. But also, don't underestimate what the community can help you personally with, right? Because the more senior you get, also the more influential you become, right? So the more you can influence what is happening in the community, the more you can help also with setting directions of something that we want to do, right? And this, I think, as an example, right? Look at Luke van Donkersgood's post around AWS doing GenAI, which got like 100,000 views or whatever within a few days. He's become kind of a voice of something that has been grumbling in the community for a while, and it has forced some reactions, right? And that's what that kind of stuff is, I think, what makes you what makes the community effort important. Right, and what makes it important to keep being part of it at the end, even if you grow your career. And also, if you're more senior, your challenges grow. That means your challenges become bigger and more detailed. So you still need access to more detailed and better experts to help you, right? And this can be as close as, and you asked me at the beginning, Leo, what's one of the benefits that you see from the Heroes Program and from being part of it? Well, you get the possibility to talk to service team members a little bit better than maybe someone else. So that's one of the big benefits that I see, right? So if I have a problem in CodeCatalyst, then I know who to reach out to. I know who to talk. I know the service team member who has actually built the code. And I can ask him, can you change this for me? Or can you explain to me why it works like that? And that's a very good thing as well.
Don't you think that this kind of involvement, especially the involvement from the seniors, and when you, as you said, you get access to AWS support directly, and do you think this influences the evolution of engineering and DevOps landscape directly when you are able to talk to them and to present some technologies? And how do you perceive this evolution of cloud technologies?
So I know of multiple things that have changed because of feedback that we have given as heroes. So I know that we have a direct impact on how technologies are built. I know that we can influence how roadmaps are being done. Right.
Can you share particular example that has been particularly impactful for you?
I would say, so something I can talk about that is already public is last year, AWS announced Amazon Q, especially Amazon Q in the console, all right, where you have the possibility to do chats and ask questions to a GenAI chatbot. I think I can say that we have had access to Q since September last year, and it was announced at reInvent. So we have had access to better opportunities to give feedback to that. And when Q was first released to the heroes in September, the overwhelming feedback was, don't release it. It's not going to work. It's completely off track.
There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.
Don't you think, because it's something that I always was thinking about that, don't you think that this is something like, because it's the same that, for example, when you pay 200 euros for a t-shirt with a logo of, imagine, Lacoste, and you have a huge Lacoste logo, no? And don't you think that at the end, AWS in this case, is getting thousands of people working for free?
Good point. Yes.
Because at the end is, okay, I love AWS. Everyone is with this t-shirt of AWS. I am a superhero of AWS. Stickers AWS. At the end, it's something like for AWS side, is something super beneficial, no?
I've heard that multiple times. Yes. And I think the answer to that is, as soon as you let AWS dictate what you're doing, that might be the situation. But no one tells you what to do, and you only get involved in the stuff that you're interested in. That means, as an example, Q, I spent like half an hour to tell them that's not working, but it was still cool to know about what's coming, right? And I gave that feedback. But that's because I was interested myself in it, and I can also take some benefit out of it for myself. Another example is the involvement for me personally in CodeCatalyst, right? I really think that service is something that would help a lot if it would change in some things, right? So all of the stuff that I do with CodeCatalyst is my own interest in it and my own dedication. It's not like I do this for AWS. I do this because I see a value for myself as an engineer to get things like this working together better, right? And that's also all of the other involvements that I do. So I don't let anyone from AWS tell me, Johannes, can you please do this? Johannes, can you please write about this? Or Johannes, can you do something? No, AWS, the moment that someone from AWS tries to influence me or tries to tell me what to write, I take an email, I send it to my program manager, and then tell them, this person has tried to influence me and tell me what to do. Can you please talk to him or her, right? Because that shouldn't happen. That's not what the Hero program is for. And it happened to me twice this year already, right? And that person got beaten up every time.
You are now in the middle between two rivers, no? AWS and FICO. And you
No, not at all. I'm on the FICO side. I'm never on the AWS side. That's the point, right?
For sure that you're on the FICO side, but my question is different. My question is, imagine that today FICO decides to move everything to Google Cloud. What happened with you?
Nothing. We are doing multi-cloud, by the way. right? So FICO is
but completely AWS out of the company.
Nothing would happen to me or my career or anything like that, right? I would, I think, I might, my involvement in the community might become less visible, right? Because that would change the time that I have to work on stuff for the community, because I would need to learn up skills for another cloud provider like Azure or GCP, right? But other than that, nothing would happen. Maybe I didn't get your question, Pablo.
No, my question it was, because always when I see that, I see this kind, these people who is in love with the technology of a company, and they are not working in this company, or at the end I see those like, wow, how good the marketing company are doing that. In this case, AWS, or even you see people with a Tesla t-shirt and things like that, and you say, man, so you are not working for Tesla. Maybe you have stocks, and I understand that because you want the people to buy Tesla cars, and then I can understand that.
I also have AWS stocks.
Okay, maybe now I understand. I get the point.
Not enough to make an impact, but I think you're right. That it's a good point, and to be honest, maybe I don't have a good answer because it's just my inside motivation that makes me contribute and makes me be interested in that, right? And maybe it's also the to see the impact that I can have on the services that drives me to do this, right? Because it feels like being part of a bigger thing. But I cannot explain that further, Pablo, to be honest, right? As maybe that's just, how to say, inside motivation, right? That brings me to go into that direction.
Yeah, I think it's always tricky with because communities for technology is always important, but we live in this interesting age where technology in many cases is owned by companies, public companies, private companies. So there's always this kind of line, like when same as, let's say, Terraform. Now Terraform is Oracle. So if you are part of Terraform community, Pablo would say, yeah, well, it's a great marketing from Oracle that you're talking about Terraform. Because as long as the technology is not fully open source and not by some foundation, then you can always kind of say, yeah, like you're doing free marketing for some company. And even with the foundation, in the end, a cloud native foundation is this marketing machine as well.
Exactly. And it's the same about if you talk about an open source project, right? You're also doing marketing for them because you're using them at the end, right?
What for me is interesting what you said is that you had already this year, you said it was this year, 2 cases when AWS one of the guys in AWS tried to kind of censor or tell you to say things differently.
Not censor, but right, it starts with small things like, can you like this announcement post? Well, the moment that someone asks me that, I will not like it because I don't like to be influenced. And I think that's what makes Heroes as well, right? It's about pulling out of the 500 million announcements that we get from AWS regularly, right? Pulling those out that are interesting to ourselves and to highlight those that we believe are interesting and ignore those that are not interesting, right? If AWS comes up with another cool new smart GenAI stuff that doesn't help anyone, but just is called GenAI, I will not like it, right? And there is hundreds of these examples that have come out this year. And I think that is important, right? That you don't get influenced by what you're doing, what AWS is doing. And they don't tell you what to do. So, and that's where speaking up about things that don't go well is an important part of the hero career as well, right? So not always talking about the cool part and the things that do go well, but also talk about the missing features, talk about what works well and what doesn't. Example for that, AWS has launched Application Composer and CodeCatalyst in the same keynote in 2022, but they were not integrated. But they were not talking to each other, right? They didn't know about each other. The teams did not know about each other when they announced their services, which is pretty funny, right? Because Application Composer would have been a native fit into how do you create a project in CodeCatalyst. And I called that out, right? The moment that the CodeCatalyst thing was announced, I had a blog post up speaking about that. And that is, I think, also an important part of the hero involvement, right? To talk about things that don't work and to bring up things that need to change as well.
Johannes, changing a bit the topic, because this is something that we wanted to talk with you when we prepare this podcast. Can you explain to us, what is this custom blueprints, and what is the importance of the blueprints in the DevOps world?
Yeah, I think so. What you're talking about, Pablo, is a specific component of the Amazon CodeCatalyst service. Amazon CodeCatalyst being integrated DevTools service meant to cover all the parts of your product lifecycle. But last year or the year before last, AWS announced the possibility to do custom blueprints within CodeCatalyst. And now these days, I think you can also use the custom blueprints without being in CodeCatalyst. Why do I think custom blueprints are important, and what can we understand out of it? What I see regularly in my org, but also when talking to the community, is that it is hard to find a good project scaffolding tool that helps you to set up projects with the same standards and then to also maintain them and be up to date with them. And I think the main point here is, if you start a new project, what do you usually do? Either you have a scaffolder that creates a sample project for you, right? If you start a new TypeScript Lambda function, you might be using CDK, then you might be doing CDK init and create a project with that. That gives you a good starting point. But you then lose the possibility to maintain the state later compared to that initial project. And custom blueprints help you to actually manage that. So it's a project scaffolder at the end that gives you the possibility to, on the one side, scaffold projects. And then also, if you change the base template, it keeps the state of what you changed, and it gives you the possibility to track those changes across the life cycle, both of the source code that you changed, but also compared with the base template that you originally started with. And I think that is what makes custom blueprints for me a little bit unique compared to other systems like that. And it gives you really the possibility to have a standard set of projects. So if I look at MKDev works as a consulting company, right? You do a lot of software projects for people. All of those software projects might have dependencies. Those dependencies regularly change. Now, what do you do today? You go into the package JSONs of all of the different customer projects and you update the versions one by one. If you now use a blueprint for that, you would start with kicking off the projects with a blueprint where you have defined the versions that you're using of the dependencies. And maybe you also have some base requirements for integrating with some of your stuff. That blueprint then gives you all of those base layers. Now a version changes. What do? You don't go to the 100 projects that you have. You go to that one blueprint where you change that version, you do blueprint apply, and you get an pull request for each other project that you just need to approve with those changes. And this is what, at least for me, is exciting about blueprints. You get that lifecycle management of top of that, and that simplifies a lot of things from a developer experience perspective, if that makes sense.
So then one of the key benefits that we have, for example, is this way to track everything. So, but can we use that in where we can use that apart from the sample that you gave to us?
Today it's available in CodeCatalyst. It is also available as a CLI, so it is open source. You can also use most of the components without being in CodeCatalyst itself. And if not, I hope that the team makes that available soon. And then you can use that to manage all your projects. Have you heard of Progen, Pablo?
No, about this one.
Okay, Progen. So custom blueprints is a tailored version of Progen, right? So I would encourage you to have a look on Progen later after the recording, because that's also kind of a project management tool in general. And that would be, I think that would be good, because it is kind of the upper. The custom blueprints are a tailored version of Progen projects, and that helps you to do project scaffolding as well. Let me just send you get you then also the link to the open source repository for custom blueprints and for the CLI. So the listeners can look at that afterwards as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as I said, right, these custom blueprints, from my perspective, have a lot of potential to influence the way that we build projects going forward. Because you think of the example of doing a Node version upgrade from version 16 to version 18. That is usually a big mess, but if you have all of that centralized in one blueprint, and you just need to change that one blueprint, you really get very fast into the possibility of adjusting all of your projects without the need to open all of the repositories, and that's what I really see as a big benefit over there.
What would actually trigger the update of the blueprint version? Do we still need to go to project repos to update blueprint version, or how does it work in this case?
So let's say the idea in CodeCatalyst is and was that you have a central place to manage that, so you get lifecycle management around that. So the blueprint is a specific project itself. You know in that project on what the dependence projects are, right? So who is using this blueprint, and that gives you the possibility at the end to then click on a button and say, now upgrade all of the 500 other repositories. And that's something that was supposed to be available in CodeCatalyst. It's not yet available there. And if you use blueprints without that management component, obviously you would need to build something around that on your own, right? Things like making the blueprint tar available in an NPM package repository and then reacting on that is an example, but that's something that you would need to build on your own.
And then CodeCatalyst acts like a dependa bot or innovate bot in this case, right? So it automates the update pass.
Yes, it could. And especially, right, as I said, it only also maintains the state across the changes that you do, right? So you don't get just updates, but you get pull requests that you need to approve before you actually merge them, right? And I think that is a functionality that I very much like, which is why I wanted to highlight that as an important thing.
And to understand correctly, that one of the benefits is that so these blueprints are kind of framework and language agnostic, right? So because if I would have, let's say, lots of Java projects, I would probably have a custom BOM library somewhere version.
Yes.
But in this case, I can do it for any kind of...
You can do it for any kind of language. Blueprints itself are written in TypeScript. Also the configuration of that. If you're using blueprints in CodeCatalyst, you also have the possibility to influence all parts of the project. This means, as an example, I can generate target environments. I can generate workflows. I can generate source repositories. I can even create issues with it, right? A practical use case where I've seen this, where I've used this functionality is also if you have workflows that are managed centrally, right? You can use this. So think of a security team wanting you to execute specific security scans. The security team would become responsible for building that blueprint and building that workflow, which would then be integrated in all of the target repositories. And then if there is a change to that workflow, or maybe even if the tool is changed, you could change that centrally, right? And the engineering teams would not need to touch the source code because just the blueprint update would do that for you. And that's one of the examples that I've seen.
And the blueprints technology itself outside of a CodeCatalyst, is it something open source that any organization can adapt, or is it something AWS specific?
It is open sourced. I sent you the link. We can please have a look at that later. I don't know if all of the features are yet available in the open source version, and if you can use that without CodeCatalyst right now. But I hope that this will be available anytime soon. And as I said earlier, right, if you don't want to use that tailored version of Progen, you can fall back to Progen, right? Because Progen has similar functionalities, and that's an open source tool that is not AWS related.
Oh, this seems like it solves a real issue for many organizations we work with the big ones. When you have, let's say, 20 plus services, then updating all of these dependencies, you always need some custom solution with renovate bot and then maybe some custom Terraform modules or some other packaging mechanism. And then this one kind of standardizes across. the full stack.
And you can do that then not only for infrastructure as code, but also for application code, right? At the end, where you can standardize those repositories, the repository structure, and also things like that, right? And you can enforce standards as well with that, because you can say like there is a code owners file, and for the code owners for specific path, they cannot be updated by anyone but the blueprint itself, right? And I think that's also cool because it gives you some more governance around how this works.
I love how Amazon does more in this. Like we talked on your podcast about the AWS Copilot, that they do this high level duct taping with open source tools. I just remember during, as we were talking, that they also offer this EKS blueprints since 2 years, which basically packaging of all of the stuff you need to properly run your Kubernetes cluster on AWS into an open source. Okay, blueprint, but in this case, it's actually Terraform modules. It's good that Amazon works this direction.
They also have something that they call the PDK. Put that into the chat as well, which is the project development kit, where they offer building blocks on how to combine different projects, different parts of projects as well, right? Now, let's talk about the bad things in that area, right? The bad things in that area is that AWS is very good at announcing cool stuff, but they then are also very good at not following up and not maintaining that stuff. A good example for that is 2 years ago, I was really excited by the deployment pipelines reference architecture of AWS because I was really on the CI/CD front, right? And they announced something and made it open source, and that project didn't get any updates or any bigger updates over the past 2 years, right? And that's something that is also very common on AWS open source projects. Someone in AWS open sourcing something, kicking it off, and then the team doing a very bad job at maintaining that, at keeping it up to date, and at making sure that it really works, right? So that's something that I would love AWS to do better.
And we need to remember that CodeCatalyst is like attempt number 4 or 5 from AWS to offer something like this, right? Because the original one was Beanstalk, which was not simplified enough. Then there was CodeStar.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm always super excited when they release something like this, like finally unified service to simplify the software delivery lifecycle. And then they're like, we deprecated CodeStar. Now there is CodeCatalyst.
Yeah. And then on point of this one, Kirill, I published a blog post around the state of CodeCatalyst in 2024 earlier this week, where I'm doing some estimations, or I'm where I'm adding some thoughts around how this way may develop, right? And that's where, I'm looking. I don't know how close to the truth I am, right? But at the moment, the number of features that I'm seeing in CodeCatalyst has been getting less in favor of a lot of GenAI things that are coming out of the release train called AWS, and I'm eager to see how right I am with my expectations. So let's do another round of this podcast in maybe 1.5 years or something like that, and then see how close I was to the truth when I wrote this article earlier this week.
I agree. And I'm sure like our listeners might still have some questions about that. And I urge them to go to the link. I will make sure to have it in the description to read it and to post if you agree with the predictions, if you are not. And I think this would be a good moment to remind everyone that answering those questions about blueprints, catalyst, scaffolding is pretty much what we do at MKDev. So you might want to give us a call, the link in the description, and we will discuss with you in details and the task that you are facing, any challenges, and you can delegate some of your work and headaches to us. And enough about this. Enough this commercial.
And on the content creator side, Leo, I would like to add that if you now got interested in these topics, right, especially in project scaffolding, let Kirill, Pablo, or maybe also myself know, and we can create some technical video around that as well. I think it's a topic that becomes more important, right? On the blueprints itself, also, I have a bunch of things on my YouTube to explain custom blueprints, how to see them in practice and stuff like that. I think we shouldn't cover that here, but if anyone wants to look at that, I can also provide a link to that stuff.
Cool. You already mentioned generative AI a few minutes ago. I'd like to dive deeper into this technology. Are there, I don't know, any exciting AI application in DevOps that you came across that might be shifting the landscape, and tools, if these tools make any difference in your DevOps practices?
I need to admit that I've been trying to not jump on the GenAI hype. I've experimented with a few tools, but not with a lot to give you a very good answer here, right? So for me, the point really is that I'm yet to see GenAI or AI applications that really take off work from developers. I see a lot of GenAI applications that force developers to think more. Best example, in order to get an answer from ChatGPT, I need to know the question. But if I have a problem, I might not even know the question. And that's where I'm not seeing any much assistance so far, right? Especially in the DevOps tooling landscape that solve your problems. They need you to understand what you want to get out of the tool instead. And that's where I really hope that the industry will change a little bit more and make it more like a partner that works with you, right? A good example for how it could look like is in CodeCatalyst and also in Q for Visual Studio, there is a possibility to delegate the feature development to a GenAI bot, right? In CodeCatalyst, you can say, here's my issue, this is my description. You can assign it to a GenAI bot, and he or she will implement that source code for you. Now, we still have the problem that the source code is completely bad quality, right? And that's one of the problems. But at least that's the mindset that I would like to get to at the end from a GenAI tool perspective, right? And we don't see a lot of that, at least based on my knowledge, we do not see a lot of that yet in the tools. I don't know, Kirill, Pablo, have you heard of any tools that really simplify the DevOps world?
DevOps world is Python scripting part. Yes, that's where you say to any modern LLM, like, I need a Python script that finds all AWS resources of this type, tagged with this particular tag, and then I want it to update it, and then Claude 3.1, 3.5, GPT-4, they will give you a script that is ready to be used, which is to me not a real software development, or not as like complicated as a real software project is, because in most cases you have just a single file under 500 lines of code of Python. If you do the same with, I don't know, like multi-file with some complex features, then it quickly falls apart, and then the code is not of a good quality. The other day, last week, I think,
it was last week.
Remembers better when I was talking about it. I was trying out Open Devin. So as I remember, in February or March, one company presented Devin, which is like this one of the first coding assistants that you say, develop me application, and it develops your application. And then, of course, because anyone can use this LLMs, and then Devin uses post like GPT-4, Open Devin appeared, which is exactly the same, but you can just run it locally with Docker containers. So I waited 3-4 months for this to kind of become more stable, and then I was trying it out last week. Surprisingly, it actually works. So, okay, it only works if you use Claude 3.5 for GPT-4. So if you use local open source models like Llama, no chance, it just falls apart. With GPT-4, you can actually say, my example was I have a small Python script, and most of the tools work really great with Python and horribly with any other languages. And this Python script of mine, it searches for direct flights between 2 points, between 2 airports. And I asked OpenDevin, could you please rewrite the script to extract environment variables, to extract credentials to environment variables, save them into a different file, and then rewrite the whole script to be a Flask web application available with a web UI. And it did. So with a couple of more extra questions, it actually modified my super simple script to be a real application with the container file, with the README, running over the web, with the whole credentials being securely fed with the 12-factor. The problem is I spent in total 1 hour with this tool. So that's 1 hour of my time. And I spent $40 on GPT, on OpenAI credits, because it consumed like almost 1 million tokens. Even with GPT-4o, that's a lot of money. So, it helped me to write something that I would write myself in 1 hour. So same time, but I also paid another $40 on top for this coolness factor.
Yeah, and it is very tailored to a specific thing at the end, right? And it doesn't cover the full DevOps lifecycle at the end of a project. And I think that's what I would love to see even more is like, how do I get tools that support me through the whole lifecycle of a product? Because we don't see that, right, yet.
And with DevOps part, everything changes so fast because you can ask GPT-4 to create Terraform code and it's going to be 6 months old. Because unfortunately, Terraform modules update really often because cloud providers update really often. So you will have something that is already kind of needs to be refactored and improved in most cases.
All right, guys. We don't have much time left. I think we can talk for another hour or two, but everything should come to an end eventually.
Yeah, let's do another session one day around how does GenAI really make our developer productivity better these days? Maybe not with me as a host, but with some people that have been more into that front, right? I can also make a connection to someone that has been working on the Bedrock API, which is the AWS GenAI system. I think there's more to come, but at the moment, I'm disappointed with a lot of the GenAI activities that we see, right? And to sum it up, I haven't seen much developer boost.
I agree.
And that is what I think we will see over the next years. When the hype goes down a little bit, we will also start to work on solutions instead of working on things that look fancy, right? And that's I really hope that's gonna change. And here the community, coming back to the earlier part of our conversation is, I see that the community needs to influence that. So the community needs to be giving that feedback to the vendors, and this is not AWS, but also all others, right? And look at GitHub Copilot. It might be great in your IDE, but GitHub still doesn't really have a lot of things that make using GitHub easier. Right. And if you go into the open source project and you want to start working on an open source project, there's always so much things you need to know. Right. Why not have a GenAI assistant that makes that part easier? And that kind of stuff is what I also hope to get a little bit more.
And for those who wants to know more about you, about your activities, and the things you talk. Where can they find you? Where can they see you, watch your videos?
Yeah, so I'm best reachable usually on LinkedIn. I also use Twitter still from time to time, but I also have all of the other socials, but I'm most active on LinkedIn, I would say. My YouTube channel is currently at CI/CD on AWS. It is focused on CI/CD in general and automation, but also a little bit on CodeCatalyst as a whole. And I have my my personal website, which, funny enough, does not have a CI/CD pipeline and is manually set up. I think that's what always happens, but that's where I also blog from time to time. We can maybe add that to the show notes as well.
Thank you, Johannes. It was very interesting. It was great to see you here on our podcast show. And to everyone else, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Call us if you have tasks for us. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johannes. Bye, everyone.
Do you think your project infrastructure is well set and maintained? We know for sure there is always room for improvement. If you are uncertain where to begin, let's first do an audit of what you already have. We will review your setup from every angle: performance, cost, security, high availability, and automation, and provide you with a detailed roadmap of which direction your infrastructure should go, generate concrete tasks for you to implement, or even take on your infra entirely, if you let us, of course.